All right, the final score and loss to the Boston Celtics is disappointing, but look past that for a moment, even though they blew another lead, because the Pelicans actually showed improvement on offense and took it to Boston, the best team in the league. I'll explain why that's a good thing, but we also can't ignore why the Pelicans are having trouble winning close games. It's a live post-game episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all, coming to you right after the Pelicans lose to the Boston Celtics, 118-112, blowing another double-digit lead. Not great. We'll talk about that in the second segment. There's reasons why we need to talk about Willie Green's substitution patterns and other things like that. Some of the play of the guys in the fourth quarter. There's reasons for it. Doesn't make them good. Doesn't mean it's okay, but there are reasons for them, and we should talk about that. But we're going to be optimistic to start the show. I want to talk about the improvement you saw on offense between Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram one day after we talk about it in the show, and how that carried them through a really tough game. Boston's a tough place to go in and win. While you lost and it's frustrating and disappointing, I think there are reasons to be optimistic about it because, again, Boston has the best record in the league. They've only lost twice at home this season, and New Orleans hung with them basically all game long. I think that says a lot about this team and where they could be, but also they're still not there yet. So we're going to break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, by the way, brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this team. We're going to look at the good and the bad. It's not just one or the other after this loss, 118-112 to the Boston Celtics. But I want to start off positive. Again, we're going to go positive, negative, then positive again at the end. We're going to do, what's that like feedback sandwich in your performance reviews and stuff they always try and do here for you. That's what we're going to do in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans here. So let's look at the positives, right? One day after I do a show where a lot of y'all were with me here talking about how I'm really not sure that Zion and Brandon Ingram can kind of coexist anymore. If BI's not going to shoot threes, if the spacing's just not going to be there for Zion, and things kind of looked a mess against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Milwaukee Bucks. Then on the road, you go into Boston, a team that has only lost twice at home so far this season. Boston is 35-11, by the way. They have the third best offense, the third best defense, the best net rating in the league. They've basically been the title favorite all season long. And you took it to that team. You hung with them. You played good defense on Jaylen Brown, on Jason Tatum. You had Zion Williamson going. You had Brandon Ingram going. And you just saw overall all-around improvement, right? Brandon Ingram took 8 threes in this game. Zion was beasting down low and carrying this team. And everything was looking good until it wasn't in the fourth quarter. And again, in the next segment, we'll get into why. Because I see a lot of y'all in the comments talking about Willie Green. We're going to talk about Willie Green coming up next. I promise we're going to get to that. Stay with me here. But I want to, again, focus on the positives here. We know, as I've said on our show, as I said on the radio, on ESPN radio today, Tuesday, or Monday, I should say, this team isn't a title contender. We know this team isn't a title contender yet. They could get there. I think they could even improve this year without making a trade. I think there's a lot of internal growth that they could do. You saw it in this game, right? Again, they went into Boston and took it to the Celtics. That is not an easy thing to do. That shows there is some talent here. That goes to what I said in yesterday's show of this team isn't bad. There's a good team here wanting to come out And at times they're holding themselves back. At times the coaching is holding them back too, and even the front office to an extent with some of the players on the roster. But to go in and have Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram coexist worked, right? Zion Williamson had the ball to start the game. You saw point Zion. They were making sure he was getting his touches. And one thing that seemed to do to Zion was just amp him up. He knew he was going to get his. He knew he was going to get the ball, and he was giving great effort on offense, great effort on defense. Brandon Ingram was trying to take threes. He was trying to play off of Zion a whole lot more than he normally does. And instead of just settling for mid-range jumpers when he did get the ball, it was a three-point attempt. Or at times he was often trying to drive and attack the basket, something that he has done really well of finishing at the rim this season, but doesn't nearly get to the rim as much as you'd like. He'll settle for those mid-range jumpers, which are a lower percentage shot, a lower efficiency shot. You don't want him doing that. It kills some of your spacing. Put pressure on the basket. It's going to open up trailing men, or it's going to leave you an open three-point shooter. And B.I. was doing that. His shot profile still has a bunch of mid-range in it, but it looks a whole lot more better, and he got into the paint more than he has done in a while. And that's what you want to see from him. Attempts at the rim, three-point shots. Again, 8 is a good number for him. He made 2. Don't look at it like that, though. Again, process over results is something we always say here on Locked On Pelicans, and that's an important thing to really look at here. You know, a couple of the things when you look at this, and we'll get into this in the second and third segment here too, is the three-point shooting, right? You might worry that they live and die by the three, those different things. They were 10 of 35, 28.6% here. That's not a good number. Those three-point shots opened things up. The shots weren't falling, but what it allowed the Pelicans to do was dominate points in the paint. They outscored Boston 58-44 in points in the paint. Zion had room to work. Zion had room to work for the first time in a couple of games. He had space to operate, and look at what he can do when he gets to the rim. Right? He looked fantastic at times, missing a couple of shots, missing a couple of things, right? But he was absolutely rolling and steamrolling through things down low. When there were mismatches, he took advantage. That space was created by Brandon Ingram. It was created by CJ McCollum getting going in the first quarter. It was created by Herb Jones going 3 of 4 from 3, all in the first half and corner threes. All of that's great, right? That was all what you wanted to see from this team. So Brandon Ingram was playing really great. Zion and him played off each other really well in a way that we haven't always seen many times this season. So I was really positive about that. The loss stings, and let's get into that coming up here next in a second. But process over results. The process was really good in terms of their offense. You saw more of the James Borrego offense that you've wanted to see all season. And Brandon Ingram, one day after we were very critical of him on the show, really stepped up and played much better and kind of fit in the flow of that offense. And things looked good until they didn't. Until they didn't in the fourth quarter. That's something that's worth looking at. What happened there? Is that a coaching thing? Is that a player's thing? Answer, as we said the other day, is D, all of the above. Let's break that down coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Quiiiz. Today, let's have a little bit of fun. Let me know. I asked this question yesterday. Who knows this? Put it in the chat if you know the answer here. Who's the leading scorer in Pelicans history? Keep that in mind here. Quiiiz with 3 eyes is a next-generation trivia experience. It's also the world's first platform where you can earn money playing knowledge games. And for Locked On Pelicans fans, they've created an NBA quiz game where you can test your knowledge and win real cash. I hopped on there for 5 minutes, won $30. Play with friends or other fans and let your knowledge shine all the way to the bank. You can play without downloading anything. Just go to app.quiiiz, Quiiiz.com, and start playing today. NBA Quiz is the ultimate knowledge challenge for fans that live and breathe basketball. Anthony Davis is the answer to that Pelicans trivia question that might come up on the NBA quiz there. It's pretty fun. You can win some easy money with your basketball knowledge. So go to app.quiiiz, Quiiiz.com to test your knowledge and win cash today. That's Quiiiz with 3 eyes, just like a 3-pointer. Play now, showcase your skills, and take home cash prizes. App.quiiiz.com, where fans become champions. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day, we are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. The good, which we just looked at, we were going to be positive. There's always reasons to be positive, and we want to look at them here. And now the bad. I see a lot of y'all screaming about Willie Green in the chat here. We'll talk about that and the play of the players too, because I think there's some obvious reasons why they lost this game, why they've blown a lot of these second half leads. We talked about these the other day. We're going to keep talking about them. By the way, if you want to know more around the league, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Day on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Okay, fourth quarter. Blown lead again for the Pelicans here. Not great. And it follows a similar pattern we've seen before. In the fourth quarter, the Pelicans were outscored 25-37. That's a 12-point swing. After keeping it close and kind of taking a real strong punch from the Celtics in the third, they ended that quarter on a very good run to give them a lead, but then lost it a little bit later. There's a number of reasons for this. So one, there's experience that the Pelicans are just lacking in this regard. The Boston Celtics have been to an NBA Finals. They've been in the playoffs with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown regularly. Everyone you could see was executing at a high level in the fourth quarter. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. They knew what their sets were. They knew who should have the ball and how things were supposed to look. The Pelicans, meanwhile, didn't, right? They looked like a team that hadn't been here before, partially because they haven't. To win some of these games, you just need to build that experience, and the Pelicans just don't have it, right? With a lot of the inconsistency in their play that they have. Offense looking good in this game for 3.5 quarters, compared to the last two games when it didn't, compared to the game before that when it did. All of that just breeds, we're not ready for the fourth quarter here. And that is not an ideal thing, right? This is where that lack of consistency comes back to bite you. It can win you some games. And when you look at some of these losses that they've had to the Oklahoma City Thunder, to the Milwaukee Bucks, you go, oh, well, it's just an off night. Doesn't matter. Let's move on to the next one. No, this is where you need to kind of figure that stuff out. Close losses there can eventually turn into wins in these kind of games. And the Pelicans just look woefully unprepared for these kind of moments, these high pressure environments. Should they get into the play-in tournament, which I think they can still avoid, and I think that's still the goal, right? If they were to be in the play-in tournament, would you feel good about their chances getting out of it? Remember what happened to the Oklahoma City Thunder last year in the play-in tournament? They weren't ready for that game, right? That game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, final game of the regular season, one right before, whatever it was, that didn't look good. This team needs to start building these consistent habits so that when you get into these pressure-filled situations, you're ready to go, you're ready to execute. It shows that these guys still aren't on the same page yet. I was on the radio with Gus Cattingill on ESPN Radio, and he said, it's like, are you optimistic that with time this team is going to figure it out? I'm not necessarily. That was something that I said. I wanted to be truthful about that here, right? With patience, maybe they'll figure it out. They'll get on the same page. They'll start winning some of these games. Yeah, that sounds great in theory, but if they're not well coached, if they're not well prepared, if they're not on the same page because they don't want to be with some of the play. Now, you saw them be on the same page for the first 3.5 quarters here, so that was good, but it tended to fall apart in the fourth quarter. You got to get on the same page then too. So while yes, patience could solve this issue, you're over halfway through. So I'm not necessarily certain that that is going to be the case. Part of this also comes down to the coaching staff, right? Yeah, I know y'all want me to talk about Willie Green here, so we're going to. And so that isn't great, right? Here's the thing. You held the Boston Celtics to 118 points. It's actually lower than what they normally score per game. They're one of the best offenses in the league, and you held them below their average here. You don't need to keep skewing defensively. You're a good defensive team. You've been a good defensive team. You have to go and score some points. If by skewing defensive, you give up 37 points in this quarter, and that's what the Pelicans gave up, right? I'm trying to remember what the number was. You went defensive too long in this one. Willie Green went too defensive in this one for far too long. You do not need to have a lineup in the fourth quarter of Najee Marshall, Herb Jones, and Dyson Daniels out there. You don't. It doesn't work, right? Then you wouldn't have given up 37 points in the fourth if that was working. This is something that I've hammered when I keep saying they need to lean more offensively, right? If your defensive stuff was working, it'd be working by now, and it wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't be complaining about this, and the Pelicans wouldn't be blowing 10-point leads in the fourth quarter. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. It's very frustrating to see the same thing happening over and over and over again and them not seem to get the lesson from this, right? Starting Larry Nance Jr. in the second half of Jonas Valanciunas when they were going to Jonas early on doesn't work. We've seen that for 4 games now that it doesn't work, right? So stop doing it. If Dyson, Herb, Najee was going to lead you to victories, you'd have more victories, and this wouldn't be another second half collapse by the Pelicans, and you could have beaten the best team in the league on the road and sent a statement. You know, I get that there's rotations you want to stick to, and you've got to manage minutes and things like that, but look, you know, in a game that was very winnable, does Zion need to play 30 minutes, or should you sub him in sooner? Brandon Ingram can play more than 36 minutes here, right? Play those guys more to try and win the game. You saw the Pelicans go back to their closing unit way too late in this game. Way too late in this one. They needed to try and go out and win the game, and it felt like the coaching staff just wasn't willing to do that for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why, because you lost the game, so what you were doing didn't work. If they were worried about losing, so they wanted to put a defensive lineup out there, well, you still lost, so it's not working. Come on now. Right? That's, I think, some of the issue here. Put in your guys and go and play them the whole fourth quarter if you need to, or the majority of it, so that you can win the game. That's one thing that I think is the most frustrating takeaway from this. They leaned way too heavily on these defensive lineups, and it doesn't work, right? They did a decent job on Tatum and Brown, right? Wouldn't you agree? Yet they combined for 50 points. You know, okay, so Derek White comes in and beats you. Drew Holiday had 20, right? It was well-rounded scoring effort. It's going to take more than that. And you don't have lockdown guys for all of those players. So go out and score some points. Because this is why you're losing these games. We've seen this repeatedly, and the coaching staff does not seem to be learning, or they do not seem to be tweaking these lineups. It's just too defensive in a league that doesn't give you, like, doesn't reward defense. Frankly, right? We heard Steve Kerr. You've seen the stuff on, Twitter and stuff of everyone complaining that no one plays defense anymore. Well, if no one plays defense anymore, that is not something you need to worry about too much, right? Like, that's something that you need to kind of keep in mind. And this team just isn't leaning into the way to play basketball in 2024 in how you need to kind of be with all of this. And I think that's what's so disappointing with everything here. So because of that, this is one that's on the players for just not being ready for the moment because of their inconsistency, but also because, the coaching staff held them back in this game, I thought. And that's really disappointing to see. And we really would like to see the Pelicans kind of learn from some of these mistakes. And look, go out and win the game instead of kind of being scared. It's super weird that they're playing kind of like this conservative style of ball in 2024 when, like, no, that's not the way to win games and do things here. So hopefully we can just really see some growth from this team, because you saw some in this. That's why we led off the first segment with it being good. Sorry if I'm distracted. I'm trying to delete messages here. Don't spam the chat. Otherwise, I just ban you. It's easier to do that than trying to kind of give warnings and other things. And I want to make sure we get the show out here and that the people on, who listen to it and aren't on YouTube can just listen properly. So there was some growth, but not enough. Look, we're over halfway through the season. It's time to kind of put some of this together. And, you don't need to win a title this year. It'd be great if they did. I'm not expecting them to win a title this year, but now we're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And that is a very frustrating thing. And we'd like to really see that be just different. And hopefully that'll end up being the case somewhat soon for the New Orleans Pelicans here, because it's the same type of loss over and over and over again. They're taking 2 steps forward at times, but also 1 step back, or like 1 step forward and 1 step back maybe in this game. So you're still kind of where you were in the beginning, and that's an awful situation to be in. You want to be playing good basketball at the end of the season. They're getting better, but I wouldn't even say they're going to hit their ceiling at this point. Where they're not going to be as good as we know they can be if things keep trending the way that they are. That's disappointing, especially because you have role players that are stepping up and playing really good basketball here. So let's get back into some of these guys and look at some of their shooting. Larry Nance Jr., Herb Jones. There's something that they're both doing that I think can be a game changer for this Pelicans team when things start to get right, get fixed, and will really help them win games and potentially make some noise in the playoffs. So let's break all of that down coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, it's the new year, right? And you always think of like new year, new you, but what if you're already doing pretty well? What if you want to just try and kind of improve a few little things without making drastic changes to your lives, right? Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Well, therapy is a way to help you find your strengths so you can ditch extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. I love this. I've used BetterHelp before. I love it that it's entirely online. I don't have time to drive to a doctor's office, sit in a waiting room, go to the session, which is going to be great, then drive home. Too many things going on with my life. I need the convenience of it. And BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire and you're going to get matched with a licensed therapist. If you don't like them, you can switch for no additional charge. So celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, I'm excited about this one, brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to everyone who celebrates from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about sitting on the couch, grabbing your favorite snacks, and placing some super bets. So FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. So not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored. You also have the fun props, right? Heads or tails on the coin toss. I always love that one. First play going to be a run or a pass. And if you're a new customer, no better time than now to join FanDuel because you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. The good, the offense starting to see some improvement there and everything, right? The bad, that final half of the fourth quarter with the defensive lineups and other things. I want to talk a little bit more about that here in this segment as well. But of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. If you're excited about the draft for the Saints, because that's all you have to be excited for, Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints, is going to be on the ground at the Senior Bowl doing some scouting, giving you some prospects to keep an eye on for the black and gold. So subscribe to Locked On Saints wherever you get your podcasts. Do me a favor too. John Corrales, who hosts our Locked On Celtics show, is actually my co-host on Locked On NBA on Wednesdays. He's going to talk a lot of trash here. Feel free to go over to Locked On Celtics YouTube page and leave a comment on his latest show talking about this win. Talk a little trash back or just let him know that it's okay. We still love him and we won't ban him from New Orleans or have some fun over there. So let's keep going on one thing I want to talk about with the Pelicans in this game with that fourth quarter, right? And the lack of offense and the lack of what we're seeing here. Let me ask you this. When you look at some of the minutes breakdowns here, of all the players who played in this game, who played the fewest minutes? Jordan Hawkins. Now, he went 0 for 2. Didn't do a ton. Did grab 3 rebounds, though. Didn't shoot particularly. Didn't have an opportunity to shoot a lot. But should he be playing over Najee Marshall at this point, who played 18 and a half minutes? Should Jordan Hawkins be getting half as many minutes as Najee Marshall? Dyson Daniels did play good defense here, but he didn't take a shot, right? Didn't have an assist. Nothing offensively for him other than 2 offensive boards was good. He played 4.5 more minutes than Dyson Daniels did. than Jordan Hawkins did. Is that the way to go about this, right? Lean in more on the shooting. It will elevate your offense. You saw a couple of possessions, particularly in the fourth quarter and in the middle of the third, where they kind of got sloppy and loose with the ball and turned it over, and it led to easy transition points for the Boston Celtics. Better spacing is going to help with some of that, right? That's an important thing that you need to kind of figure out. The three-point shot is so important to this team, and a guy who can make them at a high rate like Jordan Hawkins is important, and you need to make sure you're playing him over guys like Najee Marshall and Dyson Daniels. Maybe not an extreme amount, or maybe the minutes need to be comparable, but when you win points in the paint 58-44, but you lose because of the three-point shot differential between the teams, among other things, that's going to hurt you. The Boston Celtics took 46 threes, 11 more than the Pelicans took, and made 7 more. That's 21 points, right? And you killed them in the paint, and you still lost. It's a math problem at a certain point. If you want to keep up with a team like the Boston Celtics who shoots that many threes, they're going to be like, score your points in the paint, we'll keep making threes, and threes are worth more than twos. That adds up over the course of a game. 21 points from 3. Play guys like Jordan Hawkins. Play Trey Murphy, which they did, which was good, and we'll talk about him in a second here. All that really matters, and again, that's the coaching staff leaning too defensively on some of these lineups, and it's not going to lead to enough offense, and you're going to lose ground. That's why I think you've seen the Pelicans lose some of these minutes where the starters for both teams are out, and the Pelicans, they couldn't make up ground against the Bucks in those like non-Giannis minutes. You got to win those. When Tatum and Brown weren't on the court, you got to make up those minutes, and it doesn't really work. So that's been a problem here. Shooting is like so important to this team, and that's the number one thing. Their defense is good. The defense has been good all season long. Your offense needs to keep up. It's like really that simple. You're not going to out defense teams in the league this year. It's just not how it's going to go when you have like literally the 15 best offenses in NBA history are all playing this season in terms of offensive rating, right? You're not going to beat them. Join them. And you have guys that can do that here. A couple of notes that I want to say here, talking about the three-point shooting, right? Herb Jones and Larry Nance Jr. have looked awesome this season from 3. Herb Jones took 4 corner threes, made 3 of them. He doesn't need to be like a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 three-point attempt guy per night. You just got to burn teams. And him going 3 of 4 from the corner, really playing off of Zion like that is awesome. One of the things to note with him is his release is fast, right? He used to have a slower gather and kind of load it up and then shoot it. This year, whether it's the confidence or the work with Fred Vinson, all of the above, that shot is coming out quick. He's got some confidence. He's not scared to take it. There were times last season when he would catch the ball in the three-point corner slot and he wouldn't really be ready to launch it and would be scared. That's not the case this year. That type of quick release, that's going to make him a threat that teams are eventually going to have to start covering, and he's been really good. Same for Larry Nance Jr. He took 2 in this one, made 1. I love that, right? 2 threes per game is a right number for him. He's better scorer inside. Don't become like a three-point shooter. You're not going to be elite at it. But here he's showing some like confidence in his shot attempt. That release is quicker. He's not scared to shoot it, right? He took 3 shot attempts in this game, and 2 of them were from 3. When you factor in the defense that he played, that was absolutely a charge that should have been called and was a BS foul against him, right? And what he's done, but just winning his minutes, he's been very good for this Pelicans team, I think. He's been awesome, and if you can add a 3-point attempt or 2 per game or like make per game, that is, I think, absolutely massive for Larry Nance Jr. It was also nice to see Trey get going a little bit here. He was 6 of 14 from the field. That's not great, but he was 3 of 10 from deep. Not a great number, but it's an improvement from where he'd been. And to see him start to kind of find that rhythm, find that stroke again, I think is important. The thing that I love about Trey is taking 10 threes. They still cover him when he's not making shots, right? This is the definition of court gravity, of being on the scouting report. He's in the worst slump of his career, and teams are still defending him. He's just missing. That's where it comes down to being a make or miss league, right? Best 3-point shooters are shooting right around 40% for the season. So you're going to miss more than you make. But the fact that he is bending that defense, again, you saw it. They didn't take as many threes as you would have liked in this game, but their number trended upwards. 36 isn't bad. And you saw how much better the offense looked. It's just getting away from those defensive lineups And these guys just learning how to do this thing, which means you're going to suffer some of these rough losses, but that's why you need more consistency from them. If they can come out and play like they did in the first half in every game, they'll win these close games. They'll be able to be ready to respond to adversity, and they are not there right now. And that's the type of thing that's going to hold them back. And it's disappointing to see, but it's just kind of how it goes right now, I guess. So hopefully they'll start to kind of figure some things out, start to see some of these shots falling a little bit more. The pieces are there for this team to be good, more so than a trade. And this is why I said I don't think, I don't really want him to make a move, right? Jonas Valanciunas played well in this game. He was kind of carrying the team for them, right? Is there an upgrade over him? I don't think so. So I don't want him to take a step back. I think the way they improve the most is just internally, right? Like looking in a mirror, Willie Green improving the rotations, not leaning defensively as much as he is, getting Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson to coexist as they started to do in this game. You can be a good team, maybe not be a title contending team, but you can be a team that wins a first round playoff series. They've just got to get it together, and they're definitely not doing that here in the moment. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. A disappointing loss here, but some improvement, but they really do still need to figure some things out, and they've got to get these defensive lineups just off the court. You're going to win games with offense. Play your guys offensively. I think good things will come from that. We've started to see it. It looked good for the first half here. We'll see if they can kind of put it together. You got 2 more games on this road trip, 2 winnable ones. You got to win those, especially to try and close the month strong here. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and I'll be back with y'all tomorrow to talk more trade deadline talk. I had some names you might not be aware of that maybe the Pelicans could go and get that would improve the team. So we'll bring some of those up in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Pelicans. See y'all then.